know about you, but I've been obsessed with these y2k pleated skirts recently, and I've been looking for them everywhere, and of course I don't do them in my size, so I thought I'd make my own. So if you want to know how to make a skirt like this, just keep watching. So you will need a pair of jeans, a sewing machine, denim needles, scissors, thread, a fork, a seam ripper, tailor's chalk and pins. So first step is to just cut along the line that I've shown here. It's just got to be a straight line, so mark it out with a ruler. And that just goes straight across the front of the jeans. And then you just cut that out. So now you've got the top bit of the skirt. This is what will be the main bit of the skirt. And then you've got the two legs here, so just kind of like cut across. Here you've got two separate legs. And now we need the seam ripper. So basically we want this to be 4 separate pieces of fabric. So just go along the seams on the side of the legs and take the seams out. So there's a couple of different methods. You can turn it inside out and take these stitches out individually. Obviously quite time consuming, but it means that you don't get any holes. Or you can go along the right side of the fabric and just kind of push the seam ripper down. This is much quicker, but you can sometimes rip the fabric. Like I said, just go all along the sides of the seams. This is by far the most time consuming part of this whole project. So that last seam actually took over an hour, and the lighting was getting bad, so I thought I'd just cut this one. It's fine to cut it, just make sure you cut as close to the seam as possible because you want as much material as possible. Now what I'm doing here is basically just lay each leg out, and you need to find the smallest piece of fabric because that's the piece that you're going to base the pattern off of. So once you find the smallest piece, what you've got to do is basically just measure out a rectangle, like as big as you can get it, as long as you can get it. It doesn't really matter what size the rectangle is, as long as the lines are all straight. You can use a pen to mark this out, but I already had tailor's chalk, so I thought I'd use that. And once you've marked that out, just cut out the rectangle. So now this piece of fabric is basically going to be used as a pattern piece. So mark on all of the other pieces of fabric, just kind of like trace around this rectangle. So you should eventually have 4 evenly sized pieces of fabric. Now you need to get your pins. These ones are just from Amazon, but you can use safety pins if you want. I just find these ones a bit easier. And we basically want to join these pieces of fabric together so it's one long strip. So get 2 of the rectangles, join them right sides together, and then just pin that across the seam. And you want to basically just do that with each piece of fabric, but don't join it at the end so it's like a loop. Just make sure it's one long strip of denim. Now it's time to sew, so get your sewing machine out and sew along this line here. So I would 100% recommend getting like denim needles for your sewing machine. Denim's quite a heavyweight fabric, so if you use a regular needle it will just snap. And just sew along this line here to join the 2 pieces of fabric together. I am using a straight stitch, and on my machine it's number 6, but just choose the shortest straight stitch that you have. Make sure when you are sewing across this line, make sure you back stitch at the beginning and the end as well. Should look like this, a nice neat seam, and then you just do that with the other 2 seams as well. Now it's time to make the pleats. So you will need a fork for this. No, I'm not crazy, there is a genuine reason. So there's so many different methods to make pleats in materials, but I find that the fork method is the best. So you just kind of put your fabric into the sewing machine and like put the foot down to hold it in place, and then you make sure that the fork is facing the machine and you put the bottom prong in the material, and then you just twist. It's a bit difficult to explain, but you can kind of see here how I'm doing it. So I just twist it to make a pleat, and I actually keep the fork in the fabric whilst I'm sewing. So I just sew up to where the fork is, and then when it reaches the fork I pull it out, make sure that the fabric is all aligned and it's all straight, and then I just sew over the pleat. Not all the way across, just so you're kind of halfway across the pleat, and then just keep going. And with this whole strip of fabric, just pleat the entire thing. It is quite fiddly with the fork method, but you do get the hang of it. So now you've got your pleated bit of material, Now we're going to grab the original bit of the skirt. So we're going to attach these two pieces of fabric together, and we're going to start at the side of the skirt. This is because when you attach the two ends of the ruffle piece of fabric together, it can sometimes look a bit messy. So you kind of want that at the side of the skirt. You don't want it right at the front of the skirt.
Yes, ma'am.
So we're going to get the hem of the ruffled piece of fabric and the hem of the skirt, and we're going to attach those right sides together. This is quite important. This needs to be really neat. It needs to be lined up. And then you're just going to get your pins and pin this all together. It's quite easy, to be fair, but you've just got to take the time to make sure it's all lined up. And then just do that all around the hem of the skirt. So when you get to the end, there is probably going to be some excess material. We're going to want to join these two together, so kind of just let it fall naturally, because it will be on a slight diagonal, and then just join these two bits of fabric together with pins. And then just sew along this line here to join these two bits of fabric together. It can be quite fiddly at the top here, but just try and smooth out the fabric as much as possible and it should look fine. And don't forget to backstitch as well. Now that's all done, you just want to sew along the entire hem of the skirt when you've joined those two bits of fabric together. So again, this is quite easy, but with this you've got to make sure that when you're sewing across the pleats, they're all pressed in place exactly how you want them to be, because if you are sewing across a crease which you don't want to be there, like it's going to be stuck in place. And then when you get to the end as well, if there is like any more excess fabric, you can just cut it off. And then once you've sewn the entire hem of the skirt, you can take all of the pins out. At this point, it's good to check and make sure that there's no holes anywhere either. And it's all done. So this step is optional, but if you would like the pleats to be a bit more defined, you can use an iron just to press them in place. Just make sure you're using all of the right settings on your iron. Also, please don't attack me. I know I'm ironing this directly onto a wooden table. I don't have an ironing board and I don't plan to get one. Like I said, this step is optional, but I personally think it looks so much better when you press the pleats down. So it should look like this at this point. So again, this step is optional. If you want a neat hem, you can hem it obviously, but I wanted more of a distressed denim look. So just carefully using a pair of scissors, just distress the hem. I'm not sure if you can see. This is the final skirt. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, make sure you subscribe. I've got some really good videos planned for April and I would hate for you to miss them, so make sure you turn notifications on as well. And also, if you are a similar size to me and you would like to just buy a skirt like this rather than make one, head over to my Depop. The link will be down below, because I actually used a pair of jeans that didn't fit me. So this skirt doesn't fit me, unfortunately, and I don't want it to go to waste. That's all for the video today. Really hope you enjoyed. Love you lots. Goodbye.